In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace your intake manifold on your Ford Taurus. It's located on top of the engine. Using an 8mm socket or wrench, you're going to disconnect your negative battery terminal. Loosen it, and then put it off to the side. Make sure it's not touching any metal. We're going to disconnect our air box. Take out our vacuum lines. Just set them off to the side for now. All you have to do is pull. Disconnect your electrical connector. You're going to need a flathead screwdriver to pull that red tab. And then you can disconnect it. Now we got to take this clamp off behind here. Using an 8mm, you're going to take off this hose clamp. Or loosen it, should I say. And once you've done that, you can remove this part of the air box. Using an 8mm socket, you're going to disconnect your IAC valve. You can set that off to the side. Using an 8mm socket, you're going to remove these two bolts. After you remove those two bolts, you're going to set this over a little bit so you can get to the other bolts. All right, so there's 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4, that are holding this throttle body on. So we are going to take off this harness by using a trim tool. And then we're going to take these nuts out, and then behind it is what we're going to unbolt, and then these 2 bolts. Again, using an 8mm. Those are your nuts. Set those off to the side. I would keep these bolts together so that you know where they came from. I'm going to disconnect this bolt down here with a 13mm socket, extension, and ratchet. Once you loosen it, you can just take it out with your fingers and set that off to the side. So now you can pull this bracket down so you can get to these last 2. All right, using a 10mm socket, these. Now we can take this bolt out. Make sure you hold on to your throttle bottom. And you can take this whole piece gently and just set it off to the side. All right, we used an inductor heater to loosen up our EGR valve pipe here. In order to loosen it, you may have to do the same, because you got to take this off to get the intake off. I'm using a 1 1/16 inch wrench. All right, now that you have that disconnected, we can move on. Okay. All right, so now we're going to take this off You need a flathead to just kind of get it started. We don't need it. All right, so we're going to disconnect this to get to this Torx bit. I'm going to push it, the green tab, and put it on the front, and then pull the tube. All right, after you disconnect that, you can take this off now if you want, or you can do it after on the bench and transfer it over to the new intake. I'm just going to leave it there and do it later. Using an 8mm socket, we're going to disconnect this bracket from the intake. And set that off to the side. Go for the hose clamp, and we are going to take this off. And set that off to the side. All right, so you want to push in that white piece and then pull that out. All right, so now we're just going to twist this. Pull that off the EGR valve. Set that off to the side as well. All right, so we're going to disconnect this connector. All right, so you want to push down on that and pull it off. Set that off to the side. Using a 10mm socket, we are going to take out our studs. I'm going to do the two middle ones first. And now we can go for the two outer ones with an 8mm socket. And the other one is over here. I'm going to place my bolts where they were found, but directly in front, so I know which bolt came where, and put them back the same way. If it's attached to something, you can just put it off to the side. All right, so now that you have taken out those bolts, just test it. And it should just pull right up. And away. I like to put some rag or paper towel inside before cleaning the surface so no debris gets down in there. You're going to want to use something soft. You don't want to use anything that's going to like sand down the aluminum. This metal's super soft, so make sure you don't dig into the metal. You're going to clean up the surface like this. Lightly. Don't apply too much pressure. Doesn't take much to clean it. Get all the dust off. Now we're going to move over to our intake and transfer over whatever we need to transfer over before putting it in the engine. All right, using a T30 Torx bit, you can loosen up your Torx bits. Bolt. All right, so you want to use a trim tool to get in between here if you can't get it off. and pull that out. All right, so now we're going to transfer this over to the new intake. Make sure you line up your holes. Screw in your Torx bits. All right, so we're going to tighten these up until they bottom out and then go a little bit more, like a quarter of a turn. I'm not going to do that yet until I get the other one in. And then I like to change this to a regular ratchet so I can feel how tight it is. That feels pretty good, so I'm going to leave it there. Yep, good. Okay, using an 11mm socket, I'm going to take off this bracket for our EGR valve. We're going to remove that, clean it off, and then transfer it to our new intake. All right, so now we're going to place this inside our new intake and thread our studs in. Once you have that hand started, you can tighten it up. I would go back and forth so it goes on evenly. So this O-ring slides in evenly. And then we're going to torque it. All right, using an 11mm socket, we're going to torque this to 53 inch-pounds. Using a T30 Torx bit, I'm going to loosen up these bolts and transfer this over to the new intake as well. All right, so you want to try to free up the O-ring in there if you can. Get a screwdriver underneath, maybe wiggle it to side, and then twist it like that. Try not to break it off. Be gentle. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to put a little silicone grease on the O-ring, and that'll help seal it and get it in there. Line up your bolt holes. Make sure you start your bolts straight. Okay, once you see that bottom out, I would switch over to a ratchet so you can just feel how tight it is, and if it needs to go a little bit more, you can go a little more. Go to about wrist tight. Good. All right, so let's take out our rags. We don't need those anymore. And we're going to place our intake on. Hopefully you've cleaned out the top already. So now we're going to put our intake on and start our studs. Make sure your intake is lined up properly with the guide. There's 2 guide posts underneath that fit into the lower intake. I'm going to get all my bolts started first by hand so that nothing gets cross-threaded. All right, I'm going to use a socket to get these a little tighter. All right, so now the torque sequence for these are 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're going to be at 89 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. You're going to use a 10 millimeter on these and an 8 millimeter on those. I'm going to tighten them up a little bit before we go and torque. Once I start feeling a little tension, then I will go back to torquing. Right about there is good. All right, so 89 here. Here. Change over to the 8. And last one over here. Good. So now we're going to check one more time. 1, 2. Okay. All right, so now we're going to install our bracket. Make sure this line is on top. Okay. Now we can put our nuts on. Snug those up. There we go. Okay. Make sure that's pushed in all the way. Okay, so now we're going to attach this. Let's push it on. And connect your connector. Till it clicks, you know it's on. Push this down. So let's put our EGR line on while we still have room to do that. We can reach like that. All right, using some needle nose this time. I'm going to use that for the clamp and push down like that. That's good. Okay, so now we're going to slide this hose on. It should just click into place. So we're going to put the throttle body on flush with the gasket. Do not put this on yet because you need to be able to get to this bolt with this stud. Should I say? Get the stud in there. You can get this other stud started. Let's tighten that up. All right, we're going to torque our throttle body studs to 53 inch-pounds. I'm going to get them a little tight first, and then I'm going to move on to my bolts. So 10 millimeter below and 8 millimeter on the top. So I'm going to crisscross it, corner, and then the top corner, and then do an X pattern basically. Now I'm switching back to my 8 millimeter socket. All right, so now this bracket, make sure it's going on first. I'm going to feed that onto the studs. Like that. We're going to use our big bolt. All right, so you're going to feed that bolt in there. All right, using a 13 millimeter in an extension, we are going to torque this to 37 foot-pounds. Okay, so we're going to put our nuts on our studs for this bracket. Thread your nut on. All right, then using an 8 millimeter socket, I'm going to snug those down. Now we're going to put our bracket on for our throttle cable. All right, now we're just going to snug those up. So now we're going to reattach our intake air control valve. All right, so we're just going to snug these up to about wrist tight. All right, so we're going to clean up this tube area a little bit and this nut to help us So when you're gonna push up and spin it up. I added a little penetrating oil to help with the threads. And I recommend using your whole hand as you spin it, as you push up. Once it stops, you can use your wrench to tighten it down. Using a 1 1/16 wrench, you're going to tighten up this nut. Once you get it snug, just give it a little quarter of a turn. Tighten up the rest of the way. All right, so we're going to put our wiring harness on if it got nudged off or taken off. So now our air box is going on. We're going to feed it underneath. These cables, and then get everything out of the way. Put your air box in the bracket below. There's 2 little slots for it to fit into. Okay, once you get that in, then you can feed that onto the throttle body. Lock this in. I'm going to plug in this. Connect this one on the other side. Put our connector on. Make sure it clicks into place. And then push that red tab in. And then we're going to tighten up our clamp. I'm using an 8mm socket on my clamp. That's good. Make sure you just do wrist tight. You're going to take your negative battery terminal and put it on. Push it down and use an 8mm socket. And tighten it wrist tight. Make sure it's not moving. Now you can connect your battery, start your vehicle, let it run for a little bit, and take it for a test drive. See how it runs.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.